Hey, we're thrilled to have on our studio today two legends of the theater, David Emmes and Paula Tomei. David, along with his partner, Martin Benson, formed South Coast Repertory Theater some 50 years ago. And we just celebrated our 50th anniversary. And as a part of that celebration, the theater was renamed the David Emmes and Martin Benson Theater Center. It's a remarkable building. It's a remarkable talent. It's a remarkable legacy, winning multiple prizes from all over the world and one of the finest theaters in America. Our guest today, founding director David Emmes and managing director Paula Tomei. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Great to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you for coming in, by the way. We really appreciate it. So very kind of you. Congratulations, by the way, on the anniversary, 50th anniversary. That must be quite an extraordinary feat, no?
Well, it's quite an amazing odyssey, and it said something about, the Horatio Alger story can still exist, and that you can be a graduate of a California State University and with no particular theater resume. And my colleague Martin and I were naive enough and idealistic enough to say, let's start a theater, let's put on a show. And we grew from a homeless touring company through every phase an organization can grow through until now we are an institution with an endowment and a marvelous theater complex, and most importantly, a lot of productions that we think have added to the fabric of the American theater.
Yeah. You know, I did a little research. 50 years ago, you started in the Newport Beach Ebell Club, and you moved over to a hardware store, and you sort of progressed from there. I'm curious, though, what exactly was your creative vision back then, and did you ever imagine, and 50 years later, this is what it would turn out to be?
Well, fortunately, in the 60s was the kind of the wave of the professional resident theater was beginning. There was a feeling, I think, in the country that it was important to decentralize the American theater, and there were models about what a professional resident theater could be. Why should people have to go to New York City to see theater? Why can't there be exciting, important productions in their own community, done by artists of tremendous capability and talent and like that? So that was the feeling. So we had a model of what it could be. And we knew that we should come to an area, where there's a franchise open, which was
a cultural wasteland, if you will.
Was it a cultural wasteland back then?
It pretty much was.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but because after all, my performances at Harbor High School were a beginning of
you went to Harbor?
Legendary.
Harbor High and Orange Coast College.
Wow.
That was what OCC was the kind of resuscitated my academic career, and from there we went on and like that. So we knew that coming to Orange County, there was the growth, there was the California Angels, as they were then called, were coming in. A university campus was being established. We thought, what a liberalizing influence that might be.
Yeah.
And there's a growing audience that by virtue of the fact that Orange County was being developed. And so we had the model, we had that idea that a community, having grown up here, that would have the capability of supporting a professional resident theater, and it just took a lot longer than we thought, but we still had that sort of graduate school zeal and energy that could keep us going.
And the work ethic, yeah.
As I recall, when you first began operating, you were not technically legal in your operating permit in the building you were in.
We didn't know you needed a building permit to change to put a theater in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As I recall, one of the local council members suggested to you that, well, aren't you also teaching young artists? And maybe we can dub you a school. And
well,
that
it
would
was
be
fortunate
legal
that we were building this theater in Villa Way in Newport Beach, and it was an M1 zone. And so the building department looked up and said, well, you can't have a theater in an M1 zone because it's a manufacturing zone. But fortunately, a kind councilman...
You were manufacturing young talent is what you were doing.
who remembered me from somewhere in terms of Harbor High or OCC.
Must have been one of those stunning performances that brought the house down.
So he stepped in and tried to give us a hand and went to the city attorney, and the city attorney looked at our then fledgling articles of incorporation, and it said that one of the purposes of theater is to educate. And he goes, well, it's an educational function. A school can exist in any zone.
Yeah.
And so in that case, we got our permit.
There you go. And to
How
this day,
interesting.
education's a huge part of what SCR does.
Indeed.
You know, quick shout out to my dad, by the way, who was a counselor at Newport Harbor High School his entire career. So he's long retired now at 87.
He still
so-
speaks of you, though. He recalls your Guys and Doll performance of bringing the house down.
Oh, musicals are David's specialty.
Hey, Paula, you
Yes.
started in the ticket office.
I did.
And so you sort of, you were there to see the rise of this, this sort of platform. What was that experience like for you starting in the ticket office and rising up to the position you're in today?
Well, I saw my first play at South Coast Repertory in 8th grade. I went to Tewinkle. So, right.
I went to
Tewinkle. See, there it is. And Estancia High School. So I grew up. This was my local. You did? Okay, this is unbelievable. Go Eagles.
Exactly. I can sing the theme song, sing it if you want. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, later. No, it was one of those, it was just the local theater. So we
Yeah.
all grew up going to that theater. And the idea that when I was in high school, we had a full production department where there were jobs for all of us. And our teacher, Barbara Van Holt, who was exceptional
Yeah.
and allowed us to run this mini company, basically, taught us that you could work behind the scenes too. So when I started working at South Coast Repertory in 1979, which was the year after they opened the current facility, it was like a dream come true because I
Right.
had grown up here,
Yeah.
watched the theater grow, and when I just squatted for a job, any job.
Right.
I graduated from UCI with a degree in economics, but I spent most of my time in fine arts.
Perfect training to run a ticket office.
Yes, well, there you go. So I squatted for this job. I called this office manager every week for like 4 weeks and said, is there anything? And one day she said, you need to come in because we need people to process tickets. We have just blown through the roof with subscriptions
Right.
and totally underestimated what we needed. And that's how it started. I went in, they hired me, and I went upstairs.
As David can tell you, Paula's pretty relentless. Once you put your mind to something, you might as well just surrender.
Oh, well, that's nice. I'll take that as a compliment,
It was
Robert.
meant as a compliment.
Thank you so much. I should mention that Robert is one of our board members, a great board member, a great supporter, artist himself, obviously,
Right.
but also so much knowledge about just, how to be a board member. So
Yeah.
we're pretty lucky both ways.
Thank you.
That
Fellow
works.
motorcycle driver.
Yeah. Oh, former Vespa rider. Well,
Vespa
Vespa
club.
rider. Yeah, you've got the bigger bike, but anyway.
This is an odd question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What was it that you saw in each other that eventually sort of connected between the two of you? I'm
That's
curious.
a great question. Well, for me.
Because I'm looking at David and I'm stumped.
Oh, David. Yeah. Oh, great. Maybe I should let David.
No, he's
say.
a good-looking guy.
No, that's hilarious. Let's see. Well, when I started, obviously, I was working there. I didn't interact that much with David or Martin, for that matter, because I was working in a whole other department, learning from
Yeah.
so many great people. And over the years, it just became apparent. I mean, at that point, I was not seeing anybody and then started seeing other people. David was married, so there wasn't really a chance to form a relationship until
Right.
much, much later in the tenure, if you will,
Yeah.
of working at South Coast Rep. And it was just a very natural flow.
Oh,
and
good.
that's all I can say because,
Yeah.
I mean, working in the creative environment like that
Right.
and also spending so much time on something that you care so deeply about together is a great thing.
Yeah.
And the balance is a challenge. We have to work at that so that
Right.
we don't invade the workspace with our private lives and vice versa.
Very
it's
nice.
it's a very I guess we work very hard at maintaining the separateness of it all.
Yeah, beautiful.
Hi, I'm David Wilhelm, and this is Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Jimmy's has been called a casual comeback for me. I think that's because most of the restaurants that I developed in the past were white tablecloth, upper-end restaurants. Jimmy's was designed as a place for friends and families to gather and enjoy regional American comfort food in a casual setting. Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Simple and traditional.
Yep.
David, you and I chatted over the phone a couple of days ago to sort of prep for this interview, and one of the things I definitely wanted to bring up was, an incredible amount of artistic accomplishments, but you also managed to never run a fiscal deficit. And I'm wondering, how did you manage to do that? after 50 years?
Well, of course, in recent years, having Paul as the managing director has helped out considerably. But I think the virtue of starting young and with no money is that the idea of having a deficit. We didn't have credit cards in those days. How could you? No one would loan you money. So how could you go into debt?
Right.
So we had the kind of the aesthetic of we literally kept our receipts, the currency from our $2 and $3 tickets. That's what it cost in those days, in a cigar box. And so basically our discipline was that if there was money in the cigar box, you could spend it. And if there wasn't, you better find some other creative ways of doing it. So the discipline of that.
We could use you as President of the United States. We could use some of that thinking right about now.
So what we like to describe ourselves is that we are artistic liberals, but fiscal conservatives.
Yeah. I love
And Paul,
that.
in recent years, of course, has really helped keep that going, and the trustees of which we're blessed to have, and wonderful audience and donor base helps with their contributions to keep the theater going forward.
Yeah. I've got to believe there are so many highlights of both your careers. Is there any one in particular that maybe stands out more than others? I know you had the building, the venue just recently named after you. I'm wondering if there was anything else that maybe stands out in your careers that sort of highlights the experience.
Well, certainly the the renaming of the theater center was very significant, and I suppose we'll get with the national recognition that we got when we won the Tony.
Right.
It was some years ago now, but that really helped kind of put SCR fully on the map if it wasn't before. And I think the other thing that is not a singular event, but more of a process of seeing the impact of the commitment that we've made to develop new work and produce new plays, and the how we've sent plays out onto the American theater. And I remember very distinctly once being in London and walking down a street, and there were theater posters up, and probably about 7 of them leading down towards St. Martin's Lane or whatever it was, and one of them said, Helen Mirren in Collected Stories by Donald Margulies, which was the play we premiered. And then further down the line, it said something like, at the Donmar Warehouse, 3 Days of Rain by Richard Greenberg, again, a play that we had premiered. And we go, yeah, well, there's some sort of international impact. And it was a feeling that commitment to new work, all of which comes from the point of view we want to play a leadership role in the American theater, but we want our Orange County audiences to see the best of new theater. They don't have to wait for it to come from New York. They can see it here first. So there's a great deal of, I think, satisfaction that I take from that.
The renaming of the building was, I thought, one of the most exquisite gifts I've ever seen of generosity. I believe it was Paul Foligno many years ago. I believe he gave $10 million to have the building named after him. And you often see that, and he's a wonderful man and very generous. I have never in my life seen someone as a tribute and an homage remove their name and essentially say bye-bye $10 million. It's more important that it bear the founders' names. That was really an amazing tribute, I thought. I've never seen a gesture like that before.
I've talked to many colleagues nationally who've followed that and said the same thing. We don't know of anybody who's ever taken their name off of something to honor founders like that, or anyone.
Well, Paul is a truly extraordinary man and feels so strongly about the theater and what our mission is. But still, it was an overwhelming gesture.
Now, today we have Mark Masterson and Paul are running the place. Are you hoping to get a restroom named after you at some point in time? Because most of the walls are taken up with
Maybe
names
one of the
now.
stalls.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go for that. Yeah.
Hey, SCR is renowned for its extensive new play development program. And I'm curious, what should listeners and viewers know about the Pacific Playwrights Festival? Paula, do you want to answer that question? Or?
Well, first of all, this will be our 17th year.
Right.
And it has become a real destination for new play, not only new play aficionados locally, but nationally. So we have a lot of people coming in, actually scouting work, and frankly, movie studios scouting writers.
Really?
There's a lot of writers writing for Hollywood now, which have started in the theater, but that's not the main reason. Obviously, they come to see the good work,
Right.
and so it's growing. It's gained national attention, and it's become ever more important into the development of new work in the national scene, because some of these development programs that used to exist don't exist anymore. So
Right.
the Pacific Playwrights Festival has continued to grow and gain stature and deepen artistically too.
So what people can do on a weekend, starting on a Friday, they can see 4 stage readings of a play and 3 productions of new work. So an opportunity to see 7 new pieces of important, we think, American theater. So theaters do come from across the country, and all the other scouts that Paula mentioned, because it's quite a magnet to see the best. And we like to think that South Coast Repertory has relationships and commissions out and developmental projects with really some of the major playwrights in America.
And in part to support that on the Arduous stage, aren't you doing all new works this year?
Yes.
That's amazing. Has that ever been done before?
No, well,
There have been times in the past when our
not in the
smaller
Arduous.
theater has done it, but nothing of the impact of the Ardros this year. It is very significant.
the Argyros, and then we have Rest by Sam Hunter, which is opening April 4th, which is also an SCR commission and a world premiere, so there's 6.
Wow.
Yes.
David, you've sort of passed off the day-to-day operations of running SCR about 2011, I believe, and you missed that role?
Well, there are times, I suppose, when you would like to move forward on something, but you understand that Martin and I both, Martin Benson, my colleague, that it was important that there would be a kind of a sad irony of everything, of all the growth of theater, if we had not provided for a strong transition of leadership going forward. And so we understand that, and it takes a little bit of adjustment from being the captain of the ship to being a passenger. But I think it's important that Martin and I understand that, and we do. But also we're here as consultants. We get to continue to direct a play each year, so we can still participate in the life of SCR, and what's so to kind of enjoy all the good things that you can come, see a play reading, see an opening. And then when there's a fire to be put out, when there's lots of anxiety over some issue, we can go, well, sure, Paula and Mark can take care of that.
I'd say you're more of a first mate than just a passenger. You're still pretty active.
Definitely.
Yes, we're on the bridge occasionally.
Hi, I'm David Wilhelm, and this is Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Jimmy's has been called a casual comeback for me. I think that's because most of the restaurants that I developed in the past were white tablecloth, upper-end restaurants. Jimmy's was designed as a place for friends and families to gather and enjoy regional American comfort food in a casual setting. Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Simple and traditional.
And this is sort of an off-the-cuff question here, but what is your relationship like, 50-year relationship like with your partner, Martin Benson? What was that relationship like?
It's really amazing in the American theater that there can be a kind of dual leadership for the time, and it's rare that it's happened. But I think there was a real yin and yang between us, that even in the sense that Martin was really good to oversimplify with tools, and so he could build sets, and I'm not very good at that. And I could think about marketing and organization and like that. So that was a nice thing. And then perhaps the real key is, as directors, we have had and still do an amazingly similar kind of artistic judgment. If we would see a play or read a play, we'd both kind of say, oh, this is really terrific, or no, this is wanting, or this is over the top, or whatever the thing it is. But each of us kind of had a different kind of interest as directors. So on a spectrum of plays that we both liked, he would tend to gravitate on one side, and I would gravitate the other. So very rarely were there the clashing of egos over, no, I want to direct that play, no,
Right.
I want to direct that play. So I think that's the key to our success of having run it as a partnership.
Scott, let me give you an idea of how close they are as friends.
Yeah.
I specialize in hoof and mouth disease, which you know. So the first time I met them, I went up to Paul and I said, so what's it like working for 2 gay guys? And she goes, that would be my husband. I was soon online buying love candles from the Yankee Doodle Candle Company. Paula loves David.
Paula, you must have noticed a close relationship between the two working partnerships, right? Between the partnership there.
Right. And the joke was always really, I'm married to both of them. And I mean that in a good way. They, yes, it's extraordinary that they work the way they do. And there's been other theaters that tried to, make that happen too,
Right.
and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a rare relationship. The chemistry's there, like David said, the artistry's there,
Yeah.
an agreement, and it is really wonderful to be able for Mark and me to have them both involved,
Yeah.
and to still be there, to be able to walk down the hall and ask questions, say, we're thinking about this, what do you think? That was an incredibly visionary piece of planning
Right.
that not only our board, but David and Martin, who said we have to do this, put together, and we're grateful for it. It's a real experiment,
Yeah.
and not too many people allow their founders, successors, whatever, to work together like this.
Yeah.
And so it's so far so good.
What are some of the special challenges facing SCR in the future or in the near future?
We were just talking about this. I mean, clearly audience development with the nature of audiences aging, and frankly, the old moving on faster than new coming in. We are definitely challenged by the fact that we don't have a large subscriber base, as large as we used to have when I first started. And, that security of those, not only audiences in the house, but the finance side of that is a big difference, and one that we are focusing hard on. The lack of arts education in the schools, the fact that that started to go away 20 years ago now, is really coming home to roost in a huge way.
Yep.
And we are to expose students to the theater, to let them know it's an option, is something that we're working on all the time.
I think we're down to about 3 minutes. How do you expose the younger generations to those opportunities? How do you?
Well,
how do
one
you,
thing we do is what we can do at SCR. There's a Theater for Young Audience program that we started 12 years ago. So we're producing 3 fully mounted plays for young audiences, so that parents and grandparents can bring their kids to the theater, and that I think is being very successful. We have the theater access tickets, where we provide tickets to local high schools to come and supported by corporate contributions to see work. So we're trying to do at least our bit of introducing people to live theater and what that might
And going
mean
back
for
to your
them.
roots, you also have a big development program and training program for young children as well as adults.
Right. The conservatory, which has over 500 students right now coming weekly to the theater.
what's that program like? Can you kind of define that?
It's creative dramatics for children from age 8 through 18, and it really teaches skill sets as much as acting. I mean, I don't think too many of the kids come in and expect to become professional actors. Some do, but the training's really about life skills that you can take from learning in the theater, working together, self-confidence building, all those sorts of things, teamwork, and taking those out into the world.
Yeah. Two last questions, and we'll make it quick. I know we're running out of time. Number one, what can supporters of SCR expect in the future? And if we cannot necessarily talk about specific plays in the near future, but sort of down the road a little bit?
Well, I think, we've certainly talked about work that reflects the community and continues to do that, as it always has, as well as I know Mark has a particular interest in international work. You might see some more of that coming in. And new, you'll always see new.
Yeah.
It's the hallmark of what we do and continues to be very important.
That sounds great. David, any thoughts on that question before I ask you
No, I
one
think
last?
she covered it well.
Okay.
What do you know?
What a good couple.
That makes a
that
successful
happens.
marriage, doesn't it?
Wow. Yeah.
So I read somewhere a quote of yours, I believe, that the most famous quote that served as your guiding artistic principle is to thine own self be true. Were you always true, David, to your artistic vision at SCR?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there. If I would go back and one could find some failures or where we kind of lost our way, I suppose. But certainly the idea of a belief in the power of theater to be able to transform and enrich lives, and that for us to be able to provide that to our audience in Orange County was an an important mission and one that we stayed largely true to. I saw there's a few transgressions, I suppose, once where we tried to choose a play because we thought it would sell tickets, and it kind of blew up in our face, and we realized
Was that your Hello Dolly production?
close to it. And so we realized, wait a minute, no, if we're not doing the work that we believe in passionately, let's don't do it. And so things like that have brought us back on course.
Beautiful. Robert, parting words.
Just thank you for all you've done for the community. It's wonderful kind of watching the handoff now from David to Paula and her new partner, Mark, running it. And it must be wonderful for you to know it's in good hands, David.
Indeed.
Thank you both for coming in. Go Sailors, go Eagles.
Absolutely.
Right?
All right, I
Newport
love that.
Estancia High School,
You
we're
bet.
locals. I love that.
Yep.
Hey, you've been listening to KX 93.5, Laguna's only FM. This is Radio Caravan. I'm Scott Hayes.
And I'm Robert Palmer.
And
Jump
we're-
on board.
Megan, take us out of here, young lady.